Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for the Carta Magica online regionals that happened this past weekend. It was a really big weekend of One Piece events. There are a lot of events going on around the world, but this was the last one and the largest one, right under 1,000 players, and a really fun event to kind of go over. So a couple of things. One, if you guys want a deck list for this event or any other event that's been happening for OP06, I've been putting them on my website here, Eggman Events. So some of the other ones that happened this weekend are here. I probably won't have time to make videos for them individually just since there are so many and I'm on the road, but they will be here for you guys to check out the deck list. And then also thank you to Carta Magica for letting myself and Brian do the commentary for the event. I really do love doing the commentary, just especially because it makes me like these results be a little bit more personal. I know a little bit more about the players and what's going on, and it was a really fun time. So you guys can check that out on Twitch for the Carta Magica side, which I'll link in the description and is already linked in this document. But let's just jump on into it. So again, we had just under 1,000 players with 961, 10 rounds of Swiss best of one into this top 32 cut, and of it we did have 11 copies of Sakazuki, 7 copies of Gecko Moria, 6 copies of Katakuri, with one of them taking the event, 4 Yamato, 2 Reiju, 1 Nami, and 1 copy of Zoro. So I've been saying that the big three for this weekend for pretty much most of the events are Sakazuki, Gecko Moria, and the Katakuri, which ended up taking up a combined 75% of the top 32. So again, kind of on par for what I've been seeing. And yeah, these guys have been a menace. And if you look at the 9-1 or better, so it's only those three. Any of the other decks that aren't Gecko Moria, Sakazuki, or Katakuri are not or did not finish better than 8-2 for this event. So I think it just kind of shows that these definitely, I think, are a power above the others, and they're in a really good spot. But there are some other decks like Yamato and Reiju and others that can sneak into these top cuts as well. But they're just not as popular, are just not doing as well as these big three. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, starting off with our first place list, which is the build from Michael Curry, which is this Katakuri. So Katakuri hasn't been topping, like it has been like around for a really long time. And it was a really good weekend for it. It not only won this event, but also the Toronto event. So the Canadian events are just loving the Katakuri, it seems. But it's just in a really good spot being able to use this to, we just got so many good triggers in life right now. We got so many, like, just general support cards for yellow, including the reject, which we get for another couple weeks before it gets banned in June. But it's still a very good card. It did definitely win some games on stream this past weekend. We also have the You're the One Who Should Disappear, which is great for getting out of additional cards in hand when they just don't have any counter. But also really good because Katakuri can see this card at the top of their life, put it at the bottom, which is this is fantastic as the last card in your life because of how the trigger effect works. So just like a better copy of a Mario when it's in that last spot, and just a really good card. So other than that, it's just the cards we've been seeing, a good variety of like the new yellow cards and the Big Bomb Pirates. Obviously, 4 of the 10 drops at the top end. I honestly, like I will say, I watched a lot of games of Katakuri this weekend, and I don't like if it hits the board, you win like pretty consistently, but it's also because you're in a spot where you're allowed to win because it did hit the board. So this is kind of in a weird spot where this card is strong, but it does like just is not really great in hand for most of the game, and it can lose you because it doesn't have counter power. So I don't know. I've got a weird thought about this card right now, just because of the results from this weekend. It's still obviously very strong, but it still seems like a little bit of a liability at times, which is I have to think about how I want to approach Yellow for the next couple weeks, but it's just really interesting. Other than that, I think the deck is pretty solid. We had a really great player on it, and congratulations to Michael for their first place finish. Next up, we have Benjamin Sauk, who ended up getting a top finish with Sakazuki, and it's pretty clear that this is what the build for Sakazuki looks like more times than not. I've been seeing this build pretty often across the others that have topped. Some ratio changes if you want to. For example, like we're only running like 1 copy of Borsalino and 2 copies of Sabo. I think those cards have a good amount of variety in it. We are kind of like doubling down on a lot of cards without counter. Since we are playing 4 copies of the Gecko Moria, we're playing 2 copies of the 7-drop Borsalino, which I still like this card. It's in a great spot, especially against yellow, where you can get rid of a Kiko Nojo with this, or like a Paraspero, or just some other obnoxious cards. It's also great for getting rid of like a Sabo or a Borsalino in like a mirror match, so I do like that as well. The 4-drop and 5-drop blockers. I do also like, but we just have so many cards without counter, right? We have the Ice Age, we have the Great Eruption, which we're playing at a 2-3 split, which is a little bit interesting. 4 copies of Houndblaze, the Ama, which I've honestly been liking this card a lot. I've kind of not recognized it as a card that's in rotation for us, but it's a Navy card. It's searchable. It's like a backup copy of Houndblaze, but I'd almost consider running like a 3-2 split between the two of these, just because you are able to use this to get rid of 2 bodies, and it gets around like Sabo protection, a lot of other things. There are also stuff like Vinsmoke, Reiju, and also Gecko Moria, where the cards going to bottom of deck instead of trash actually can impact their plays, which is really nice. And because of that, Houndblaze and I think Ama and the Borsalino we talked about get more and more powerful because of those kind of differences in removal, which is really good. So I don't have much more to say. I think most Sakazuki lists again have been looking like this, just some ratio changes, and the deck is still in a really, really good spot going into OP06. So there we go there. Next up, we have our Gecko Moria. We're going to look over it. This is Duck's list of it here, and it's also kind of in the spot. I don't want to be pessimistic sounding or plain, but this is what Gecko Moria looks like for most of the topping lists we've been seeing. Rebecca is just not strong enough for what we're doing, and the recycling ability from it's not as impactful as it is in Sakazuki. Other than that, like 8-drop Gecko is really great. Our Sabos and Borsalinos are a little bit more impactful and important, since we do need those blockers. And then like obviously Absalom is such a good card. It's probably the best card that we can keep recycling, which is why I've been kind of getting so many copies of Great Eruption, Ice Age, and other cost removal reductions, just to make sure like our Absalom has like targets to hit as well. So I don't have much more to say about these guys. I think Gecko Moria is in a really good spot overall, and most of them have been looking exactly like this, just with some ratio changes what you want. So don't have much more to say, but this is the list here. Next up, we have Ryan's version of Vinsmoke Reiju, and this one's running a couple more cards than I'm used to. I'm not a big fan of the Yonji package myself, but it does get a good amount of value if you are able to play your 8-drop Judge, which is really important. I don't know if you're able to get this set up quickly enough and fast enough, or just consistently enough to keep getting this out and have enough copies of the cards in the trash as well. But it does feel good, and there are some good matchups where being able to just go wide on the board makes it very difficult for your opponent to kind of answer it. We are running obviously all of these. The only we do have to find some room for the Yonji, so we did go down on a 3-3 split of the Niji as well. We are playing the 4-drops Reiju, 4 copies of this card. Just too good for us. There's just so many times where we're able to need like some more card draw, and just get that high hand size is really helpful, and it's the cheapest one in combination with the ONG. So 2 Dawn being able to go into it, get the card cycle, and help us find our pieces is very good. We are running a couple more events that I'm used to as well, including the Gatling, the Germa 66 running 3 of, which isn't too surprising, but also 1 copy of the Black Bug. I haven't tested this card out too much, but being able to get some removal off of a card like this is pretty good. It also doesn't need to do a Dawn minus effect. You just have to be lower Dawn than your opponent. So if you need to do some removal, but also you want to make sure that you are able to use like a Judge play next turn or something like that, it's really good for getting that as well. So you don't obviously make a body on board, but otherwise good in a lot of spots. And it can get rid of something like a Sabo, which I know is really obnoxious in Sakazuki and Gecko Moria matchups too. So other than that, I think the deck is it's really, really fun. There are some like small, like just unfortunate issues with like consistency at times, or some weird matchups for it, but it's a really fun deck. I'm really happy that it's been topping here in North America. It's something that I was a little bit worried that is maybe a little bit too linear, or like the deck building was a little bit too linear for people to pick it up and play it seriously, but it's still in a really good spot, and congratulations to their finish there. Next up, we have Nami, which we did get like one new, I don't know how to say support card for this, but it is the addition of the White Snake. So this is a 2-cost counter. It says up to one of your leaders or characters gains plus 1k power for the turn, then draw a card. So the fact that you get it for the turn means that you get to become a 6k leader, which is very strong. Obviously, if you play 2, you become a 7k leader. And the fact that it draws a card, this is definitely for Nami. I know this is a Navy card, but definitely for Nami. So this is the build that Joshua played for the event, and ended up going X2 with it. Other than that, you do see like a lot of the cards that we're used to seeing for the Nami deck. We're still running the Impel Down stuff, so 3 copies of Daz Bones and 4 copies of Buggy. 4 Kayas and the additional add of the Boodle. I really like this card, but not maybe competitively, but just as a concept. I do think it is good. There's a lot of KOing happening. And even if it doesn't end up being a blocker, the fact that it's unless you're playing like Houndblade or getting Houndblazed by it, it does get like a trash for 2. So it's kind of like a medium target for us, but it's not terrible. And just like an additional 1k counter is good. We did have to go down to 3 copies of Level Up Beam, which makes sense because White Snake is kind of just like a better copy of it in a lot of ways. And I think the deck it's still in a good spot. It's interesting to see that it did get like a new card to play with and tinker with your ratios and stuff, which is cool. It's still the same deck as it is, and this meta is a little bit fast. I think stuff like Reiju is really good at going wide, and Gecko Moria as well, just being able to play a body every turn on a leader attack swing that's above average, makes it a little bit tricky to keep up with pace at times, but there are some good matches for the deck, and going X2 with it is just really, really impressive. So I don't have much more to say about Nami. We've been seeing a very similar deck for the last little bit, but it's cool to see it still being able to get a top finish in these events. And again, congratulations to our Nami player, Joshua. So there we go there. And then we just have a couple more lists. We have Zoro next, which continues to make some topping positions. This is Jimmy's version of the list, which we were also able to capture a game of his on stream, which is really fun. It's the same new style. It's pretty much almost the same as what I said about Nami. It's the same deck, but we do have the addition of a new card, which is the Gum Gum King Kong Gatling. So this is from the set. It's a rare. It says main up to one of your leaders or characters gains plus 3k power during this turn. Then if your opponent has a character with 7k power or more, give it to one of your leaders or characters plus 1k power during this turn. So it's a 2 Dawn investment that you can get a plus 4. With not easy, like plus 3 consistently, but maybe plus 4. It also has this trigger of KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 5k power or less. It's a film. It's a Straw Hat Pirate card. It's an event, so you can use it with your Buggy. You can find it with your Nami. I think consistently good for the deck, and the card Effect from Life is pretty great for getting rid of like a Borsellino on your opponent's turn, since it doesn't have the protection if it gets triggered out of life, because Borsellino only has the protection on your opponent's turn, not your own. So I think that's something that's really helpful for the deck. It's a great consistency piece, and it's just what it is. Some decks do need some time to set up, right? And the other thing is that we run so many cards with Rush that we are able to, even in like this meta where removing cards is very easy to do, if you attack with Zoro, you still were able to get some investment with him and some pressure. That is great, and it can help you out a lot. So I think the deck is in an okay spot. I know that Newgate did win the Oceania event, and it's kind of the same idea where we're just super aggressive. And if your opponent's not respecting that or is not kind of geared for it, these first couple weeks are fantastic for aggressive decks to take off while we're still kind of figuring out how our control decks work and what our ratios are going to look like. So this is a list here. Congratulations to Jimmy for their finish. And to wrap it up, we're going to talk about Yamato. We're actually going to talk about 2 different decks. There was a 2-2 split between players running more of, like, I'd say, like the traditional aggressive version of Yamato, like we see here from Tev's build, and then also the green base kind of fortress build that we see here from Den. So these are the 2 builds for the deck. I personally like the idea of the fortress build a lot. It's not my own playstyle. I haven't found my own personal success from it, but it does have some really good targets for it. And then we also have, I would say, like the more traditional version of it here. So Yamato, I think, is the most flexible leader that we have from deck building potential in this meta, which is why it's so tempting to play. There's so many different synergies you have. Yellow and green has just like a lot of unexplored space, especially since like our only other leader was Arlong, and he's kind of like dependent on having like this kind of trigger subtype to be able to build. Yamato is like one of the most open leaders that we've had in a really really long time. So from this more aggressive build from Tev, we're focusing on using our Dracula Mihawk, being able to use this to be able to get cards on board. There's a lot of good slash cards, including like this 4-drop Arlong that I like. This has this on play, trash one card from your hand. Up to one of your opponent's rested leaders cannot attack your opponent until the end of your opponent's next turn, so you can use it to prevent them from attacking, which is good against stuff like Gecko Moria, which is kind of, they depend on that sometimes, or especially early game. Or Sakazuki for like an additional like -1 to get some removal, so that's very good. Especially since you can, again, go Mihawk into Arlong, or into Charlotte Cracker, into Neko, into Kiko. There's just so many good 4-cost slash cards that just happen to exist in this deck that just make it a little bit easier to go. So other than that, like our top end, we have some Hody Jones, which I do. This is one of the best finishers in the game. Being able to use this means that, your opponent could have done Borsalino Sabo last turn. Cool. Anyways, I'm going to play Hody Jones. I'm going to rest both of them, attack for game, and there's really not a lot they can prevent from getting rested from this card. So I do think it's a good card for a finisher, even though it's a little bit risky. It is in a good spot there. And then 7-drop Linlin, I don't know what it is. 7-drop Linlin's always been like good, but like it's kind of like slow and a little bit clunky. Whatever it is in this meta, this is like one of the best cards to play on 7. If not, like, I just feel like it's feels better than average, because we're in just so many of these situations where so many decks are 4 life leaders in this meta specifically, that this just being able to crit a life or banish a life on play is so scary. So there's so many times it gets you heals, which is still a benefit for it. It's a little bit tricky for, or a little bit expensive for stuff like Sakazuki to remove it, but they can with a good timed Ice Age, or like a Hina too. But this card's just a bit of a menace, and you find yourself like late game having a lot of times to play it still, compared to like in previous metas where your opponent would be like, yeah, okay, I don't mind losing a life, or yeah, I don't mind giving you a life. It really feels like it's a real decision, and you win from both of them most of the time. So I think it's a good pick for it there. Other than that, this is the list of Den for the kind of, again, more yellow-based aggressive build. And then we have the Fortress build here from Den as well. So, sorry, that was Tev's list. I think I said that. That's Tev's list, and then this is Den's list. But yeah, the idea for this one is that you want to be building this really big board afterwards of like taking cards from your life. You want to play this 8-drop kid, which is unfortunately like still very removable in this meta, but if your opponent can't remove it, you're in a good spot, especially since we can play cards like Don Quixote Rocinante, which will prevent our 8-drop from getting KO'd, which is really great. It doesn't prevent it from being bottom decked, which is really unfortunate that Houndblaze can still find a way, but otherwise very good. And we just have these blockers. We have these ways to get some consistency for it. I find it interesting that we're not playing 10-drop Dofi, but I would also admit that when I play this deck, that 10-drop almost never had like a really good spot to play itself. So I think that's fine. We have so many other Don Quixote Doflamingo pirate cards, including like the Monet, which is like a double blocker at times, being able to rest something 4 or less on block, and also be a 3-cost, which means you can play it from our 8-drop kid, and the fact that it can be found from Baby 5. There's just a lot of synergies to have with this card. So yeah, the only yellow card we're playing is Onami, which Onami with Yamato is broken. We could have 6 Don, pay 2 for Onami, and a 9k crit, even if we're the defensive build, hurts no matter what. And you do want to do that. So I think like sometimes like the only issue with this deck is that we don't always have like a really good finisher, but at the same time, I think this deck is it's a really interesting build. And yeah, one day I'll find a Yamato deck that I really jive with and I really like, and maybe it'll be a Fortress build, maybe it'll be more of this like quote-unquote traditional yellow aggressive build, but I think the deck is really interesting. The lead is really interesting, and it's really like a deck builder's challenge, which I really appreciate as well. So anyways, that's going to be the breakdown for this event. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, shout outs to Carta Magica and Brian for the stream this weekend. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if you guys want to check out more deck lists, there's a lot more on my website from official events, some of the events I've hosted, and it's just some other ones I've been able to find too. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.